Good evening. I was like, what time of the day is it? It is evening.
Yeah, you got it.
We have been waiting around all afternoon to start our recording because we have been waiting all day for a special package to come in that contained these right here. And they are the proof copies.
Yeah.
So you can look through here. If you can read real fast, then you can read our book on YouTube. But they are here. And very shortly here, you'll be able to get your own very own copy of Happily Never After. 5 ways to destroy or create your fairy tale. So hopefully you want to create.
Not destroy.
We spent enough time destroying it. And we'll talk more about this, though, in our very next episode. So you will be able to get your hand on a copy very, very shortly.
I'm afraid that this entire episode, I'm just going to be yawning a lot.
Yeah, usually we get started in the morning. You've just had coffee, so you usually have a lot of energy.
Yeah, it's evening. It's like past 7 at night.
Yeah.
It's almost my bedtime, so I'm like...
I'm pretty excited. The adrenaline from the book and all of that has me very excited. Ready to go.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
All right, then you lead this then.
So I can carry this podcast to the finish line.
You carry every podcast.
Well, that kind of is true.
You handle the episode.
Yeah.
You're just the rescuer of this podcast.
Yeah, that is true. And with that, let's jump in.
All right.
Gather round, everybody. It's time for a family meeting. The Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. We're the Osterkamps. I'm Thomas. This is my wife, Lysandra. Hello and welcome to our family.
I knew this was going to happen. I got to control this. All right. Welcome to episode 148 of the Family Meeting podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about complimenting your spouse rather than competing with them.
Now, before we jump into today's episode, I just want to have a little competition between the two of us.
Okay, no problem. I'm going to win. What is it?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Because we're here. We're not here to compete. We're going to compliment.
But you see how, prepared I am to compete with you, and I'm not even nervous?
Yeah, that's not even healthy. But no, I wanted to just... I know we always at the end talk about what episode's next.
Yeah.
But I want to throw a little teaser out there because literally moments ago, our proof copies of Happily Never After came in, and they look amazing. I'm so excited to get this book out to all of you who are out there. And so next episode is our Happily Never After episode, where we talk about it a little bit, give you a little bit behind the scenes, give you a little update and insight into what the book is all about and those sorts of things. So don't miss episode 149, and then we have another special episode, 150, right following that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Going to be talking about some things parents need to know.
Yeah, which that should be a good episode as well. So we have some good stuff coming up. So make sure you don't miss any of the episodes. Go and subscribe and follow the podcast. But today, we're talking about don't compete, compliment. Because, did I say complete? Or did I say compete?
Compete, I think.
I don't know what I said. I'm second guessing it.
So
what I meant to say was don't compete, but compliment.
We let our YouTube watchers already know that we're recording this at night. It's very close to Lysandra's bedtime, so she's struggling. Literally right before the intro, she let out the largest yawn ever. And she's fighting yawn right now. Viewers on YouTube are watching her try to fight it and hold it in. Those facial expressions.
I'm trying. I am worn out for sure. So everybody just bear with me. And if I say the wrong word, I'm going to need you to auto-translate for me in your mind. Okay. All right. Now listen, you married this person, whoever they are, your husband, your wife, you married them.
No one forced you into it.
No. Hopefully.
Yeah, true.
Hopefully nobody did. You chose this person. They are your teammate, not your opponent. And yet there are times that we can catch ourselves competing with our spouse rather than complimenting them. So how can we act like true teammates and support one another rather than competing with one another? And that's what we're going to talk about today.
And of course, being a Christian couple and a Christian-leaning podcast, we want to see what God has to say about especially this particular topic along the lines of marriage. We were just doing some premarital counseling with a couple who's getting married in November. Shout out to Rich and Aaron.
Ew.
And we always start off by pointing people to who originated marriage. Of course, that was God. And you go back to Genesis chapter number 2, beginning in verse number 22, and it says this: "The rib that the Lord God had taken from the man, he made into a woman and brought her to the man. Then the man said, 'This at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh.' And the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed." And so you can see right from the beginning here that you and your spouse, you're not just on the same team. Now, we talk about team all the time, Team Osterkamp, whether that's just me and Lysandra or whether that's all 6 of us as a family unit. But when it comes to Lysandra and I, it's not just that we're teammates. We're one.
Right.
We are one flesh is the way that God describes it in the book of Genesis.
That's right. So how do you know if you are acting like a teammate, if you're acting like one, or if you're competing with your spouse? Because I think sometimes we do it and we don't know that we do it.
Okay.
And so we're going to just share some signs that maybe you are competing and you are even maybe subconsciously in competition with your spouse. Here's one of the first ones. You aren't happy when your spouse succeeds. You just aren't happy when they succeed, and you have a difficult time celebrating their success. You don't really like to talk about their successes. Maybe it annoys you when you hear people talking about them, and maybe they are repeating or bringing up past successes, and it annoys you. You may even feel envious or jealous at their success. You may feel insecure when your spouse accomplishes a goal, a dream, a promotion, or even is complimented by family or your own children. If you can identify with any of these feelings, you may be subconsciously in competition with your spouse rather than complimenting them.
And it's interesting because you mentioned about just being something as simple as complimented by family or children or something. And isn't it interesting how some things kind of small like that can really trigger something inside of us? Like, well, why aren't they complimenting me? Why aren't they thanking me for the things that I do? And even if it's not some big outward show of competition, in those little moments right there, if we don't grab a hold of those and take control and deal with it right there, that can become a much bigger issue.
I agree.
So when you have those feelings, and listen, that's a natural thing. We want people to compliment us. And so when that happens, take some time to gather yourself, get in the right mindset, and be happy that your spouse is enjoying those sorts of compliments and those sorts of successes.
I've seen this in our daughters, and it's something that we've discussed in one of our family meetings with our kids. Is there are times when I will say something like, "Oh, so-and-so, thank you so much for doing the trash. I really appreciate that." And there's another daughter that hears that and says, "You didn't notice that I did the dishes?" And it's like, well, just because I noticed this daughter doing the trash doesn't mean that you're not important for doing the dishes. Like, it's like they want to make sure that everybody's getting the same amount of accolades and compliments. And it's like, girls, we're not in competition.
Yeah.
We are on the same team. Everyone's important. Everything everybody does is important to the team. And of course, we attempt to try to recognize all of our girls individually and keep it somewhat fair in that way. But just because somebody else is getting complimented in your family doesn't mean that it diminishes you and who you are. Rather, we should be happy for them.
Yeah. And you want to work to keep it balanced as much as you can. But honestly, and we all know it, if you have more than one kid, there's some that need more encouragement in different areas than others do.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you're a little more verbal maybe with one than the other. But that's part of life.
Yeah, exactly.
But even if that is happening, we need to learn to be happy for each other.
Mm-hmm. And one way that we can do that is exemplifying in our own marriage. We can be that example to our kids of not being in competition, but just being happy for the other when when other people praise their successes.
Have you felt angry when your spouse gets accolades from others or your family? Maybe your children notice they do something well. Maybe you play this game for one of the podcast episodes, like you have, I don't know, a milestone episode like 100, and you play this little game, Mommy or Daddy, and you come up with all these little questions, assuming the kids are going to overwhelmingly go in your favor as a wife and as a mother, and then it goes the other way.
You're so classy, right?
Are you so happy for your husband when that happened? I'm just throwing suggestions out. Like,
I'm going to be honest, all right?
Hypotheticals.
Thinking about this episode, I asked myself this question. I said, have I ever felt like I was in competition with you, Thomas? I was like thinking, like, have I ever actually even felt that? And my answer was no. And then I was like, oh, episode 100.
And we didn't talk about this ahead of time.
No, we did not. We did not. Totally unrehearsed. But I did. I felt like, oh, that's the only time I think in our marriage that I've ever felt in competition, and that was with the kids.
Yeah.
Is like episode 100, yes. But in general, like sometimes I'll be like, man, it seems like the kids are like, Dad's the best. Dad's so fun. Like, what am I, chopped liver? Hello?
Yeah, and it's like, well, it's not a competition, at least not a close one. I mean,
yeah, I know. We're all aware. But no, that's the only time, at least for me personally, I think that's the only time that I've ever felt competitive with you. And that is like in the eyes of our children. How about you? Have you ever felt competitive with me on anything?
I don't think so. I know in most areas you're more talented and stuff than I am. So it's very few things, I would say.
You said that with a straight face.
Yeah, I that was sincere. I was definitely being sincere.
There was this one time when someone said that that I was a better speaker than you.
And I agree with
And I was like, oh no, that's so hurtful. And like, how could they say that? And I was very worried about you and how you would feel. And you didn't care at all. Because you're not in competition with me.
No, and I agree. I agree with their assessment. I've heard both of us.
But yeah,
anybody who listens to the podcast more than 5 minutes is like, yeah, she's definitely a better speaker than he is.
That isn't true at all. But I don't think that you are in competition with me at all. I don't think that's ever been your issue. And I think that the one time that I am is with the kids.
Yeah.
I think.
But maybe you feel angry and resentful when your spouse succeeds. And if this continues without correction, you may actually begin to hope your spouse will fail.
Ooh.
And you see the progression here. If you don't nail the little things, whether it's just like a little compliment or something else, then it just starts to fester and get worse and worse. And now, instead of just like hoping they're not recognized or hoping that you're recognized instead, you're literally hoping that they fail. I mean, have you ever celebrated in your heart when your partner failed? And if you get to this point, you have a real problem. You are no longer living as one flesh. You're not a teammate anymore, but a competitor and an opponent. And it reminds me in sports, this happens every once in a while, where you'll have some teammates who get into fistfights, like on professional teams, and it's like, you're both on the same team here. Like, I don't get this. I don't understand that. And that's exactly the way it is in marriage sometimes, where it's you've lost focus of who that person is.
It reminds me of the Bible verse, and I don't know the reference, only by pride comes contention. And I mean, honestly, that's what the bottom line is, right? I mean, even in those athletes, why are they fighting with their teammate? it could be a bunch of different reasons, but I guarantee at the root of every one is pride.
Totally.
It's all about pride. You are a competitor if you and your spouse are keeping score. This is something we talk about frequently on the podcast, that when you keep score, everybody loses.
Yeah.
Don't keep score. You got to let that go. And it's hard to let that go. It's really hard to let that go because you are concerned that your needs won't be met, that that you're going to get walked all over, or that that things will be unfair and you won't get what you have coming to you, what you deserve, or what you feel you're entitled to. But listen, married people shouldn't be keeping score on anything. That's really dangerous. It's like, this point for you, okay, here's a point for me. No. If Thomas gets a point, that's a point for me because we're on the same team. If your spouse gets a point, that's your point because you're on the same team. So let's think about some areas where spouses maybe are keeping score. Okay. Who made supper the last time? How many times did I have to make supper this week? How many times did he make supper this week?
Who walked the dog last?
Who walked the dog last? You know what? Our kids are at camp this week. They're gone. And it's
amazing.
Very difficult for me.
It's really quiet around here.
Yes, which I don't like. I love having time with Thomas alone. Love, love, love it. But did I cry when I left my kids at camp? Yes, I did. Did I tear up a little bit when I had coffee in the living room with just coconut? Yes.
And here's what I don't see. We saw them Monday. We're going to see them Friday. Literally the only days you will not see them, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
I know.
It's so short.
I know, but I miss them. I miss them being here.
But you know they're all going to move out soon, and you're going to be stuck with just
here we go. I know. Well, and I'm thankful that we have invested in our relationship year after year after year so that when the kids are gone, and this is an everyday norm, we have a good relationship. We have a friendship. We have something to really enjoy. And I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, me too.
But I still miss my kids. Sorry.
Well, and they're not here to walk the dog. So that means we have to walk the dog.
And I guarantee, I was like, am I going to be walking the dog every morning and every night, every day? When
I walked him this morning.
Oh, did you?
I mean, we walked him together.
So who picked up his poop this morning?
You were holding the leash at the time he pooped. That's the rule. I took the leash.
So you walked the dog?
I did. Because when we were walking into the house, I had the leash. It's whoever has the leash last.
I don't know. I feel like whoever has to pick up the poop, that's the person who did the job. What are we talking about?
Keeping score.
Oh, yeah, keeping score. All right, so how about who makes more money?
That's you right now.
But we can sometimes be keeping score.
It's definitely.
About that.
What's always interesting to me is there are some men that their whole identity is in being the provider, and they have a real issue if their wife makes more money than them, which I think is weird. Yeah. I hope your painting business, you make way more money than me.
That's just because you don't want to work.
No, because I want you to succeed, and
and you want my money.
I want your money. I said it.
All right, good for you. I'm glad that you don't have any ego issues at all.
Well, what about this one?
Okay.
Who cleans more?
Yeah. You're not winning that. You're not winning that battle there.
See, this is why we're not having a competition, folks.
It very much sounds right now like we are keeping score in every aspect of our lives. But I feel like this is a good lesson.
Just know the facts.
This is a good lesson. This is a good lesson for our listeners, because you may also be subconsciously keeping score with your spouse, and you're in a competition you didn't even know you were in. Obviously, that's happened to us today on this podcast. Okay, I will say this. Sometimes we do keep score on this one. Who took the kids to volleyball practice last?
Yeah, we had a friendly competition where it was like, okay, it's your turn.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that. Like, hey,
keeping things even.
Yeah.
To some extent. Mm-hmm. But
if I had to do it 2 or 3 times in a row, I'm not like angry about it.
Right. Another sign, though, that you're competing is you feel the need to like one up your partner in various aspects of life. You know, they get to do this, I've got to one up, and I've got to be able to do this, or whatever accomplishments it may be, successes and those kinds of things. That's not the kind of attitude of a teammate.
No.
One upping. That shouldn't have any part in teammates.
The only one-up that should happen is in Mario.
What's one-upping in Mario?
It's the little mushroom you get that's a one-up. It adds a life to your count.
Okay.
So that way you can die one more time without losing the game.
Okay, gotcha.
It's a one-up.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only one-up. It's just in Mario.
So great movie, by the way, if you haven't seen the new Mario.
Oh, yeah, it was a good movie. We liked it. Kids liked it, too.
But, all right, what about this? You do small things to prevent your spouse from succeeding or make it difficult for them to succeed.
This makes me think of what you always say.
Sabotage!
He always does that every time anybody acts like they're sabotaging anyone in the family. He goes, sabotage!
It's from a little cartoon. I think it's called Valiant, where these birds were in one of the world wars. I think the first one. And there was this little mouse that had like bombs or whatever, and they would send him in to sabotage stuff. And he would scream as he went in, sabotage!
Yeah, so Thomas always screams sabotage. But maybe that's what you're doing to your own teammate, your closest teammate, your spouse. Maybe you are sabotaging.
And as you feel threatened, you begin to belittle your successes, acting like they are no big deal. And then you feel the need to maximize your own successes.
Yeah.
Belittle their successes is what I meant to say, not belittle your own.
I was able to translate that. I got it.
Okay, cool. Maybe I'm a little more tired than I thought.
Yes. People are getting it. I think people are getting it.
Yeah, but, maybe even exaggerating or subtly bragging about what you have accomplished. When your partner succeeds at a task that is within your area of strength or expertise, you begin to become insecure of yourself and your abilities. Mm. You feel that when your partner does something well, your own talents are diminished. Almost like it's a scarcity mentality, where there's only so much compliments, only so much stuff to go around, and so you've got to get and hoard and protect your own. Which is the exact opposite of mindset that we should have.
And I think it all comes from being insecure. You're insecure about yourself and where you stand in life, in parenting, in your relationship, whatever.
Yep. And we get scared to fail then.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that you do wrong, you kind of diminish. And now your relationship involves deception and secrecy because you're too proud to tell your spouse when you fail.
Right. Maybe you realize that you have a competitive relationship because you just seem like you can't agree on anything because you're both trying to win every argument and every disagreement because you're competing.
Put this little plug in for next week's episode.
Yeah.
It's one of the chapters in our book is about that.
Yeah, it is. Winning and losing.
Happily Never After. Get your copy soon.
But it maybe seems that you and your spouse are always pointing out each other's flaws, and not in a loving way, like constructive criticism or anything, but rather with the purpose of hurting each other's feelings or just bringing the other one low. Like if I point out Thomas's flaws, he seems like he's not doing so hot and I'm elevated because I'm only talking about my good points. I'm not talking about my flaws.
It's such a petty thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Do you value your strengths more than your spouse's strengths? Do you think your spouse's weaknesses are worse than the weaknesses that you have? If you were able to see yourself in any of these areas of competition, you need to begin to focus on changing your heart. It's a heart problem, okay? Yeah. That's where it's at. So you need to allow God to work in you. Stop competing and switch to be a complement to your spouse. And so now we're going to shift the focus and we're going to talk about how can you complement one another rather than compete. So we've looked at all these bad things. Don't do these things we've talked about thus far. So what should we do?
Well, and I think before we move on, I want to highlight how important it is if you see these things taking place in your marriage or relationship, that, and we talk about this all the time, that you acknowledge it and you own it and you apologize for it.
Yeah.
Listen, honey, I'm sorry. I've been competing. I've been secretly hoping that you would fail. and all these other things. I've been filled up with pride. And so just owning that, okay? And I think it's important for us to stop and just, maybe you literally need to push pause right here on the podcast episode and go handle and take care of that issue. It's one of the things that Jesus talked about. He even said, if you're so much as going to worship and offer sacrifices and you realize you've got something between you and somebody else, leave your gift there, go get things settled, and then come back and offer your gift. And maybe that's what you need to do with this episode, is just push pause. The most important thing is not to finish this episode, is to go get your relationship settled and taken care of and straightened out. But once you get that taken care of, all right, let's talk about how we can complement each other here. And you can begin by noticing and appreciating the differences between you and your spouse. So Lysandra and I are opposite in almost every single way.
Yeah.
We are alike in a lot of key ways, but we're so much different than each other. But that shouldn't be an annoyance, but an advantage in life.
Yeah.
You look and you recognize your strengths and theirs, identify your weaknesses and theirs. And literally, as we're looking at this book that we've got here, it is truly a product of our differences.
Yes, it is.
Because Lysandra is so strong in so many areas that without her strength, the book never happens.
Mm-hmm.
Without my strengths,
the book never happens.
It does. It's just going to cost you a lot more money.
Yeah, because I would have to pay
all that kind of stuff.
I would have to pay everyone else to do everything that you do to make the book happen.
And so just something like the book is an example of that, where our strengths come into play to help each other. Identify your weaknesses and theirs. And learn to see the value in your partner's strengths. Don't focus on their weaknesses, but understand them so you can step in and help and love and support in those areas or weakness. So there are certain areas where I know Lysandra is not as strong, and I can come in and I can be the support in that area. And there's other areas where, I've got some weaknesses. Organizationally, I'm not real organized, but Lysandra excels at organization and loves it. And so she strengthens that for me.
Mm-hmm. And that's a way that we complement one another. And it works really, really well. I don't know when it was, somewhere along the line, I stopped being so annoyed with your weaknesses because I was annoyed by your weaknesses, like big time.
Like name a couple. I'm just curious.
Like that you never.
Never? Really?
I stopped myself. We never say never. It feels like I'm teaching everyone in my in the way that I misspoke. It feels like you often forget to put everything away.
Yeah.
Thomas leaves things out. That is his thing. He sets it down. Like wherever he is when he's finished with it, there it will stay. And I used to,
and I know right where it is, so I can get back to it when I need it.
You have no idea where anything is. And that would annoy me so badly because I just felt like, just put things back. Then you don't have to go through and constantly be reorganizing everything. You just put things away as you go, right? And
I have this funny story real quick. Can I interrupt?
Okay.
A second?
Interrupt me.
Yesterday when we were getting ready to take the girls to camp, I was looking for my hat, and Catherine was upstairs in our room looking or getting something, and I asked her, I was like, hey, have you seen my gray hat? And she's like, I think the last place I saw it was in the car. But I go into my closet, and right where it's supposed to be is my hat. And I was like, oh, I put it back where it went. What a novel idea. And she thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't find it because it was where it should be.
Because you don't look where it should be because you don't think the things back.
Yeah.
Interesting. But yeah, so like that's very simple, but that really used to annoy me. Now I appreciate it because I understand like that's where I come in. That's what I'm here for. Like I am here to help you with that. And I love being a support to you and I love to help you. And so I find that in a way fulfilling.
Now, I just want to interject here because I know my mindset. So some guys and even some ladies that have my issue may see the loophole. That's not an excuse to be inconsiderate. So whether it's leaving dirty laundry out or trash or whatever, like just throw your stuff in the trash when you're done. Take your dishes to the sink. Like, we're not talking about using it as an excuse to be inconsiderate and take advantage of somebody.
Right. And you do try to like put your shoes where they go and all that kind of stuff. You try more now than ever.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's just something that like I know I'm going to help you with, and I enjoy helping you with it most of the time. I'm trying to think of anything else.
What's another weakness?
A weakness that used to upset me would be like your procrastination. How you will
You mean
wait to do things to the last minute.
to the right time?
Till the deadline. When something's on my list, my goal is to cross it off as soon as I possibly can. When something's on Thomas's list, he sees that deadline
As when it needs to be done.
Yeah, so I won't think about it until then. I think about it until it's finished.
Yeah.
So everything on my list is kind of a burden and a weight on my shoulders. But I understand that that's like what I consider a weakness. Maybe you don't consider it that. But I like that part of what I bring to the table is helping you get things done on time.
Without nagging.
And that is a tricky thing.
Nice balancing act there. Tightrope walk.
It is very difficult. The line is so blurry between reminding and nagging. Am I right, ladies? Yes, but anyway, a good marriage, though, is one where both spouses complement one another and help each other to become better people, achieve their goals and their dreams, and just really support one another, where each other's successes are the goal for both parties. So my goal is Thomas's success. Thomas's goal is my success, and we work together to achieve.
And you instill confidence in your spouse by noticing their positive qualities and verbally encouraging them. And this is a way to compliment rather than compete. You're literally complimenting them.
Yeah.
Show them that they bring value to your life and the relationship. And there are many ways to show your spouse how valuable they are to you. Compliment them. Express gratitude to them. Say things like, "You're incredibly talented in your speaking ability, Lysandra."
And I often will tell Thomas, "You are so talented with your graphic design. I don't know how you do it. You amaze me every time."
And just going through and just paying attention to what they are doing well or what they're doing at the time and complimenting them. You know, things like, "You're my hero. I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad I married someone like you." A person who is competing will not say these sorts of things because they are an opponent and insecure about themselves.
Mm-hmm. One very important way to compliment your spouse rather than compete is to help each other meet physical and emotional needs. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. And we've already kind of discussed some just when talking about our weaknesses and strengths. But if you're competing with someone, you aren't concerned with meeting their needs. Like,
No.
That's the last thing on your list. You've got a lot of other things that are much more important to you. But when you are trying to compliment your spouse, then meeting their needs becomes very important to you. So you want to meet your spouse's needs physically. This can be done with intimacy. It might be a back or a head rub. It might be cuddling. It might be sex or holding hands. It might be a sweet kiss. But these kinds of things will meet both emotional needs and physical needs all at once.
And that's such a great point, because if you are competing, you don't want to meet those needs because that puts you at an advantage. If somebody's needs aren't being met, they're not as physically or mentally, emotionally strong to be able to handle and do certain things.
Yep.
That gives me an advantage.
Right.
But if I have a mindset of complimenting, then I want to meet those needs, because then that equips them and gives them what they need to be able to be successful in the things that they're doing.
Right.
And these little things can go such a long way in helping your spouse become successful. And complimenting your spouse means you are both different. You both bring different perspectives and backgrounds to the table, which ultimately helps each of you be better people and have better lives.
Right. And that's just it. That's what a team is. we both together, if we're both helping one another to be the best person that we can be, the bottom line is my life is going to be better. Your life is going to be better because we're helping each other be better.
Yeah.
And then we're better together and it benefits us both.
And it really reminds me of what Paul wrote in Ephesians, where he talks about, and he says, whoso loveth his wife loves himself.
Mm-hmm.
If you love your wife, you love yourself. In other words, that's going to come back to you. The more you invest in your spouse, the more you build them up and encourage them, the more you help them to succeed at whatever it is in life, whether it's their job, a hobby, or whatever, their spiritual walk. Like, that's going to come back to you in so many positive ways. So when you are helping your spouse, you're literally helping yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that better life. And as long as you see it that way, if you aren't too proud, you can allow your spouse to teach you.
Mm.
We need to be teachable. Listen to their point of view and value it. And then you can learn from it. And this was something I could not do in the beginning of our marriage.
Right.
Because I was too proud. I could not learn from Lysandra. And man, I just think about how much further down the road I might be in life if I had valued her knowledge, her experience more, and took her advice more often.
Do you think that you could not learn from me because you were in competition with me, or you just didn't see my value?
I just think it was my own personal pride. Sometimes it's not about competing. It's just my pride was what did that for me.
Like if you allow yourself to learn from me, it's saying that you needed help.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to appear to need help.
Yeah. So it wasn't that I didn't want you to succeed or whatever, but I wanted to be my own person, succeed up my own. And I had to learn to be teachable.
Yeah. There was a major shift somewhere along the way where all of a sudden you started asking my opinion, taking my advice. And it was a really wonderful change in our marriage. And I think it's brought us a lot closer as well.
But here's the thing. If you're always competing with them, they won't be open to learning from you.
That's true.
And so if you put them down or belittle their way of doing things, they're not going to want to learn from you.
Mm-hmm.
It requires give and take. You need to be teachable, and then you have an opportunity to teach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just think about, just real quick, how much we have become more like each other. Because you have taught me a lot of things, I've taught you a lot of things, and we both have become more complete individuals together. And I find that interesting. I mean, just in stupid stuff, right? So this morning we don't have kids here today. They're at camp, and so we said, hey, why don't we stop, get coffee, and then go down to the beach. And I don't drink coffee, as most of you know. I prefer a Red Bull or something like that. So I drop her at Starbucks so she can go in and get her coffee. I'm going to go to Publix, which is just across the parking lot. And I'm texting Lysandra as I park, hey, I'm parking where I always park when I drop you at Starbucks. And which is basically in the middle between the two locations. And she, at the exact same time, is texting, hey, park in your usual spot. So we know.
I'll walk over there.
And literally, mine went through, and then her went through exactly at the same time. Yeah.
So we're both laughing. But, and even that, though, is us trying to be considerate of one another. I'm trying to prevent you from having to, come back in the parking lot and deal with the traffic.
Man, it's nuts.
It's nuts over there. It's a bad spot.
And I want you to be able to find me.
Right, so I'm not just walking around, and yeah, so we've become so much more like one another, but that has that's happened because of a lot of give and take, learning from one another. I think about today, I was on the phone with the college admissions office for an hour and 15 minutes.
That would be the death of me.
It was terrible. And she says, okay, I'm going to email you the form. You're going to download it and sign the form and then send it back to me. And about a year, maybe 2 ago, that would have sent me into a panic attack.
Yeah.
Because I would be like, I don't even know what you just said. What was
technology?
Technology is my kryptonite for sure. And
it's that old lady spirit you have.
I can't help it. I'm trying. But I will say this. After years of me coming to you and saying, okay, help me to know how to do this. How do I do this? I did it myself.
I taught her how to do it.
You taught me how to do it. And I had to have humility enough to ask for help and to listen to him and what he's taught me.
And I also had to learn to be patient as a teacher. That even though I think it's intuitive, doesn't mean you think it's intuitive.
That you didn't learn that right away.
No, I did not.
There were some hard years of him losing his temper with me on computers. But yeah, I mean, learning from one another is amazing. It's fabulous. I mean, it should be you and your spouse against the world. And sometimes it actually feels like the world is fighting against you.
Yeah.
I mean, you might feel that way right now with what's happening in your life, what you're facing. But listen, face life together. Hold hands with your teammate and walk through this life together. Makes me think of the Iowa Hawkeyes, the Swarm.
Swarm. Yes, very good. I'm proud of you. That is incredible.
I'm so proud of myself.
You want to let people know what the Swarm is?
I'm know what the Swarm is. So during the Iowa Hawkeye football season, which is coming up.
Not fast enough.
Sorry, babe. The Hawkeyes, the team, they all gather together in the dugout. It's like
that's baseball.
Okay. What's the little tunnel?
The tunnel.
Oh, is it the tunnel?
It's the tunnel.
Okay,
Yeah.
the tunnel. They gather in the tunnel. They're getting ready to come out. Their song is coming on Back in Black.
Yes, Back in Black. Yep.
Back in Black is on. They are standing there and they're all holding hands, which is not like a manly sports thing to do, but that's their thing, and that they are a team and they're going to come and they're going to conquer together. And then all of a sudden they just start running out of the tunnel and they go
one solid unit.
They're a swarm.
Yep.
That's what they are. And that's what you need to picture yourself. Like, put on some Back in Black.
Yeah.
Hold on to your spouse's hand and then face the world together. Whatever it is that you're going through, whatever challenges, whatever successes you're trying to achieve, hold hands and walk through this life together, okay? You're going to team up to achieve your dreams, both of your dreams, not just one. You're going to team up to achieve both of your goals, not just your goal, not just your spouse's goal, both of them. Even simple everyday tasks you are going to try to conquer as a team.
Like getting the kids' suitcases out from the garage.
That took teamwork because our garage is such a Jenga game of storage. But if one of you really wants to pursue something, pursue it together. All right? It's not he is over there chasing his own goals and dreams and trying to like achieve the promotions, and I'm over here chasing my dreams and trying to achieve what I want to in my business. No, we're facing it. We're pursuing it together. And each of you bring your own unique set of skills to the table. All right. So let's talk about this with you and I, Thomas.
Oh.
Most of my skills are people skills.
You have a lot of people skills. Yes.
But
you have verbal skills. You have writing skills.
Okay. So
I feel like Napoleon Dynamite right now. I'm talking about all the skills.
I don't remember that part apparently about the movie. But like Thomas has his own job, right? But I can come alongside him and I can help him in these areas, in the areas that I have skills that maybe he is lacking, and he's not lacking that much anymore. You've grown a bunch, but I can come in and I can help him socially, and I can be on his arm at different things and buffer. I'm the buffer.
And eye candy.
Communication. No, not eye candy, but I'm the buffer in communication. So I take the pressure off of him.
Every once in a while, the system breaks down and she's off talking somewhere else.
Yeah.
Stranded.
And he's like, where did she go?
Man down. Come back for me.
So that's one area. And then the reverse, of course, is true. In my business, what I'm trying to achieve, you can come alongside and you can assist me, you can help me, you can be the tech person, you can help me on my website. Like all of that stuff is where he comes, he takes his skills, he brings them to the table, and he helps me pursue what I'm trying to pursue because we are a team. Don't try to make your spouse into a carbon copy of you. Why would you do that? Encourage them to be who they are and see the value in their skills. So I don't want Thomas to be some expert social guru. I don't want him to be amazing with conversation. That's where I come in. That's where I help him. And I know that you don't want me to take over all the tech stuff, do you?
If you could learn how to do it, that'd be great.
You liar. You would
Totally let
You wouldn't miss it. Do you want me to take over graphic design?
Yes.
Social media?
Yes.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Go for it.
You want me to be who I am, and I want you to be who you are, and we bring our skills to the table, right?
And along with the idea of allowing your spouse to be who they are and not trying to change them into a second copy of you, allow them to enjoy and pursue their own hobbies and passions. If they're passionate about this thing over here, let them go do that thing and support them in it. If they love this certain hobby, encourage them to spend a little time on that. You're trying to complement them and who they are, not compete with them or compete for their time and attention all the time. Encourage them to be who they are. And this is something that we've kind of learned is we may be in the same room even, but we're both doing our own little thing. Or you might be in one room doing this and I'm right in the next room doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
And we're okay with that.
Yeah, and it's good. It's brought a lot of peace. But listen, God created each of you exactly as he intended.
Yeah.
He didn't make any mistakes. There were no accidents. You each have different backgrounds. You have a different perspective, different life experience, family upbringing, and so on and so forth. Allow these differences to complement one another rather than being in this competition for who's right, who's best, who gets to achieve the most. Remember, you're on the same team. Live like it.
So we want to talk about the family meeting tonight, and that is just sit down and discuss your team. Talk about each of your strengths and weaknesses. It might be good to just pull out your phone and just make some notes.
Mm-hmm.
What are her strengths? What's his strengths? All right, what about his weaknesses? What about her weaknesses? And talk about how you can complement one another and see those areas where you literally are fitting together like a puzzle to help and support and encourage each other. Maybe you need to confess to your spouse if you've been trying to compete or secretly hoping they don't succeed. And promise today to begin to be that teammate that you know that you should be.
Thanks for joining us today. Please go subscribe to the Family Meeting Podcast from your favorite podcast provider. If you found this information helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org, or email us at info@familymeeting.org. If you'd like to shoot us a text or call us, you can send a voice message at 904-257-3062.
And we want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting as we discuss our new book, Happily Never After, coming out at the end of this month.
Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned.
We did it, and I only yawned like 6 times.
You survived the night recording.
Yes, let's not do this again.
Well, it'll probably happen again at some point. But
I'm out.
It's not bedtime yet. That's good. You got to walk the dog.
I know.
Not that we're keeping score, but I think it is your turn.
I walked him last night and this morning.
Last night, the kids were here.
No.
They weren't?
No.
What day is it?
It's Tuesday.
Oh.
Kids were at camp last night.
All right. Well, we've got coconut waiting on us, so we're going to have to go, y'all. Have a great night.
Bye.